Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. We're about to get started on our marketing tips and tricks. We're just waiting a moment for everyone to join. Mark, hello.
Hey Claire, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Very good. Very excited. I'm keen for this session. The next in our digital forums, marketing tips and tricks. It's going to be good. So we might give it another minute or so before we get started, and then we'll get into it. Alrighty. So today, Claire, as we touched on marketing tips and tricks, it's going to be a great session. But before we get into that, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional landowners on which we meet today. For me in Canberra, that's the Ngunnawal people. For you up in Sydney, it's the Wan clan. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So today's session, obviously, marketing tips and tricks. But again, before we start that, a quick message from CEO of Tennis New South Wales, Lawrence Robertson.
Hi everybody, and welcome to our 2020 Club Forums. And obviously this year we're coming to you online. We're usually out and about and meeting you in person, and I know many of us are missing that opportunity to do so. But as we all know, it's been a very strange and challenging year due to COVID, and so therefore this year we've chosen to come to you via the World Wide Web. But of course, COVID has provided its challenges, but I do want to say thank you on behalf of everybody connected with Tennis New South Wales for the way in which you have adapted and worked hard to get us to this point, and now it seems like we're coming out the other side of it. So the forums, well, look, we've lined up some great panel guests. Many of them are club committee members, coach operators, members of councils, all designed to help pass on some of the experiences, tips and tricks that they've found from their clubs, not just in the recent past, but over many years of experience. So please take this opportunity, ask questions, write down everything you possibly can. All of this is designed to help you go back to your clubs and help us grow this great game of ours. So I'll now pass over to the team. Enjoy the forum, and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet you here at the courts sometime very, very soon. Look after yourselves, take care, speak soon.
Thanks, Lawrence. Now, before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping things. I'll be one of your hosts, Mark LeBroy, Regional Tennis Manager, Southern New South Wales. We have Claire Serafini, the Head of Marketing, Communications and Member Engagement, based out of Sydney Olympic Park. Now, through the session, you can see us, you can hear us, but we can't see or hear you. But we'd love all participants to engage, and you can send any questions through to our text line. The number is 0478 122 677. Now, if you want to put your name and club, that would be great. But also, if you want to remain anonymous, that's also fine. And alternatively, if you'd prefer to send an email, send it through to membership@tennisnewsouthwales.com.au. Our session today should go for approximately 60 minutes and will be available on the Tennis New South Wales YouTube channel after this. Now, Claire, you've got a couple of updates as well.
Thanks, Mark. Look, just before we get started, we've got a couple of just important issues here at Tennis New South Wales we want to take you through. So just a few short slides here. Firstly, our AGM. It's scheduled for 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 24th of November. We have sent some communication out around this already, but just providing a bit of an update today on it, as it does look a little bit different this year, as it is a hybrid AGM. What's different? What does this mean? Due to COVID and social distancing, requirements for our AGM will be conducted as a hybrid. A hybrid meeting shares the characteristics of both a traditional and a virtual meeting. This means a limited number of members will be able to attend in person, with others attending online. We've partnered with Link Market Services to deliver the AGM and work with them on building a microsite, which can be accessed through our Tennis New South Wales website. All Tennis New South Wales AGM related information is on this microsite, and we encourage members to participate online, and you could consider hosting your committee meeting on that same night. How is voting conducted this year? Voting will be conducted in person if you are attending at the physical venue, otherwise online. Voting in person will be as per previous years, and online voting will open on the night. Director elections this year are for 1 court operator, 1 Sydney Metro and 2 country delegates. A thorough, fair and transparent interview process was conducted for all nominees. The board could not decide on a preferred candidate in all categories, i.e. a number of candidates being equally suitable. So for fairness, the board have decided to abstain from voting, and if any, unsigned proxies are given to the chair. Note, so what this means, if members appoint a proxy to someone other than the chair, they can either leave it open or instruct their proxy to vote as directed. If you appoint the chair as your proxy, you need to direct your vote for director elections. If you appoint the chair as your proxy and do not direct your vote, it will not count towards the director election element of that meeting. If you've got any questions around that, please contact our membership team. Secondly, child safeguarding, a hugely important issue for us here at Tennis New South Wales as well. Our vision here is that all children and young people are entitled to enjoy tennis in all its forms in a safe and welcoming environment. What are we doing in this space? We have our club commitments, and we're working with you to continue to monitor and educate our clubs and our coaches on child safety matters. All clubs should have a member protection information officer, and there's great resources available currently at Play by the Rules. We are developing a safeguarding children framework, and this will outline our zero tolerance approach in this area and a commitment to improving the child safe culture throughout the tennis family. Also, you may have read recently that we have confirmed our intention to join the National Regis scheme. We encourage all clubs to understand and learn more about that scheme, and after the AGM, we'll be communicating more details around this space as well. So thank you. Let's get into the session today. Mark, back over to you.
Thanks, Claire. Obviously, coming from a small business background myself, the value of marketing to communicate your message to your current members and potential prospects out there is a must. So really excited to dive into this, as I know how important it is for many small businesses, whether you're a club and a committee or a coach out there. But at the core of all of this is obviously understanding your market and having some key insights. Now, the field team, obviously we're engaging with clubs, coaches and councils to roll out Tennis Restart. And through that, we've gathered a heap of data across the state. And I just wanted to run you through a couple of these stats. Obviously, if we look at this, 10,000 new customers booked a court online with Club Spark between March and September this year. There's been a 205% increase in online booking revenue between January to September this year versus last. And that's just an amazing increase there. And then also we're seeing clubs with a website, social media such as Facebook and Instagram. They're seeing a huge increase in participation 5 times and a huge increase in revenue 2 times, Claire. So clearly what we're doing in that marketing space is massive, and especially starting to leverage the digital side of things is really important. Claire, you're obviously our head of marketing, so you're working at a state level, probably even more of a national level as well. Are you seeing any key insights in data that you're seeing in the reports that you're reading?
Yeah, look, thanks, Mark. We are constantly looking at the data and the insights and letting them inform us around the activity and some of the campaigns. I wanted to touch on today some of the recent data released from AusPlay. That's with Sport Australia, and this is hot off the press. This report was released in October this year. So we will work with the teams on the ground and disseminating this information to you all and breaking it down a little bit in more detail. So that will come in due course. But today I just wanted to draw on some key things that have come out from that report, because it's really interesting and it certainly lends itself to what we're doing, particularly in this marketing space. So this report was across national, state and territory on almost 400 different sports and activities, and it really was looking at the early impact of COVID on sport and physical activity participation. From this, tennis came out as one of the top 5 preferred sports for both adults and children, which is really interesting and really encouraging. That's after sports like football, swimming and things like that, and it's great. That's where we'd expect that we'd want to be sitting. But I think most interestingly from this data is that 1 in 3 participants who choose to play tennis in a social setting with the principal reasons of fun, fitness and friends. So this means that 1 in 3 people are playing tennis in an unorganized way. And really it's the fun, fitness and friends that's drawing them to tennis. That's something really interesting for us to look at, I think. And then lastly, with this group of people, when they were asked the question what sport they would look to play in the next 12 months, tennis was ranked number 4, and that was after swimming, the gym and football. So again, we're seeing that tennis is a preferred sport and physical activity at the moment, but certainly in that social setting. So when we look at our campaigns, whether that be a national campaign, and last year we had open court sessions, and I think from that perspective, whether you call it open court sessions at your club or not, it's more the fact that you've got an offering in that social space. And then as we look towards this summer, we will be looking at more of a brand awareness campaign, so to speak. So drawing interest in tennis, everyday Australians, it's a sport for everyone. And that's something I think today we want to drill down into a bit more detail as well. And then at a local level, how you can leverage off that. So I think we've got a really exciting special guest about to join us, Mark. Yeah,
we do. And just quickly on that, I love that fun, friends and fitness angle. I think if that can be our catch cry at a club level to drive participation, that's brilliant. But yes, today, so we do have a special guest, someone who I've worked closely with in business and in the marketing side of business, from both strategy to implementation. We've got John Yanni from Growth Ops down in Melbourne. John started, I think, 20 years ago with a boutique agency in Canberra, which became one of the most awarded agencies in Australia, and has gone on to much bigger and better things now with Growth Ops down in Melbourne. So welcome, John.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for inviting me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say hi and share some stories with you all.
Mate, it's brilliant having you here, and we're really keen to pick your brain and get some detail out to our clubs and our coaches who I'm certain would love the support and insight that you can bring to hopefully make it, the best summer of tennis campaign they've operated.
Oh, I'm really glad to help.
Awesome, mate. So let's start with the marketing industry as a whole. And when considering small businesses such as tennis clubs and coaches, what avenues of marketing are you guys seeing that are having success? And within that, is there a variation between metro and regional? If you can answer both of those questions, that'd be good to start with, mate.
Sure. I think it might be good maybe to zoom out before we zoom in, I suppose. 2020 has been quite a year. Unprecedented is a funny word that I feel like I've heard an unprecedented amount of times in this year, previous to others. But in this case, perhaps really, really relevant and valid, because this year has been a year of firsts. When it comes to marketing in particular, we've had challenges that are very hard to overcome. I'm in Melbourne, as you alluded, and I mean, we're just coming out of a pretty long and painful winter. Those Victorians that are on this call will probably share the sentiment that this has been a particularly difficult period, and this last couple of weeks of tasting what feels like real freedom has suddenly, opened our eyes to it. But obviously that period has represented the from national lockdown all the way till now, has represented all kinds of extreme challenges for people. As someone who's across all aspects of marketing with clients really small and really big, we've had a really interesting snapshot of what's been happening. And I guess the big takeout that I think everyone needs to really understand from a contextual perspective is that digital uptake in Australia and globally has gone through the roof. And so when we talk about digital uptake, we're talking about people moving into online in huge droves to engage with business and engage with brands and engage with people at levels that we haven't seen before. And that translates down then to the second part of your question around what that means from a marketing perspective. So what's working? Online is working massively, so much, more than I've seen in other times, and certainly across other channels. Digital is cutting through, it's connecting with people in a more meaningful way. So, social, websites, apps are all seeing 100%, 200%, 500% increases depending on category, depending on where we're at. Food delivery, for example, is an interesting category where we're seeing insane amounts of growth because you can't go anywhere, you can't get anything, and everyone's getting takeaway, right? So none of them are weird, but it is big. And the interesting thing that I guess you should just have in the back of your mind, and I'm sure it's not a new stat for a lot of people, is that, you know, it's been studied for a long time around how long it takes for someone to learn a new habit or to change behavior. It's about 65 days-ish, typically, of doing something the same again and again and again before it becomes your new habit. We have been, certainly in Victoria, longer than that, but nationally, we have been forced to do things digitally for a really long period of time, and it's become the new norm for a lot of people. So we're seeing that. We're seeing that digital marketing is working more and people are going to digital channel first. Differences between regional and metro. Normally in marketing senses, you would see pretty significant changes. In some cases good, some cases bad, and in this case is the same. I think normally we would find in a lot of media channels, from a marketing perspective, regional marketing can often be cheaper, for example, on things like radio, TV, etc., and digital being kind of fairly standard across the board. In this case, that's exactly the same scenario, but we're seeing that digital cost in general is actually increasing a little bit because there's more eyeballs on stuff. So whilst this might be sound a bit more complicated, there's more people online, so there's technically more inventory, but there's more demand, and so there's more demand for that. And so we're actually paying more to do digital marketing in some cases across the board. We're seeing that much more in metro than we are in regional. So you are at an advantage if your regional in your digital marketing will go further than it has ever before, it's likely, and it'll probably be cheaper than other channels. In metro though, from an effectiveness perspective, we're certainly seeing that that digital habit has really kicked in for a lot of people, and we're seeing across broader demographics than usual a big uptake in digital. So whilst it would have been a stereotype but fairly true that older generations weren't engaging on digital as much as younger generations until 2020, where that's no longer really the case. We're seeing massive uptake in older generations on all kinds of categories, online shopping being a huge one, online groceries being a really interesting one. We're seeing one of the fastest growing markets in that space are the 60 to 80-year-old bracket who are buying their groceries from the Coles and Woolies. So behaviors have changed and are changing, and we're seeing lots and lots of habits changing across the board. But yes, from a digital marketing perspective, I wouldn't say that there's any huge gap between regional and metro. I think things that work in one place is working in the other reasonably as effectively. The advantage that's always been in regional has been that communities tend to be stronger. But even that has been turned around a little bit. We're seeing anecdotal evidence of people hanging out with their neighbours more than ever in metropolitan areas due to lockdown. Again, the Victorian experience is probably unique, but that's across the board too.
Thanks, John. Look, we've definitely seen a lot of shifts happening this year, and we do have one of our club forum session on Monday focused specifically around digital readiness. So we're going to delve into that in a little bit more detail. We've actually just got, before we dive to our next question, we've got a question that's come in from Matt in Hornsby, Ku-ring-gai. And his question is, how can we attract more players to our adult social play events? We see this as a good entry point into comps and court hire. So I think, thank you, Matt, for that question. And I think it's great. We're seeing, obviously, the data is showing us that there's interest at a social play level. How then do our clubs convert those people who are interested into their clubs and into their courts, and then I guess keep them engaged and retain that retention piece as well? Right.
Well, I mean, this lends itself, I think, very much to having a plan, right? The key to this, I think, is to try to resist the temptation to engage in reactive marketing if you can. Whilst it's great to seize an opportunity and jump on it, what you want to be doing in most cases in kind of small to medium business environments, there's limited resources. You need to use them really wisely. And if we jump on every single spot fire, or in this case, every single opportunity, it can backfire because you'll run out of steam. So I think in a roundabout way, that the way I'd answer this is, first, make sure you've got a really key plan. If one of your objectives is to try to get more people into these social play events, let's try to quantify that. And so go through your process, have a think about it, and consider what we need to do what are the key things that are attracting people to those events in the first place, and understand what they are. And when we talk about those adult social play events, have a really good idea of who that audience might actually be. Because when you're speaking to the right audience and putting the right message in front of them, it works a lot better than when you're maybe saying more generic things. Create then the persona of the person that you're trying to speak to, and then try to create the compelling message that goes along with it, so that it's really clear what you're saying, what the value that they're going to get out of playing at your club might be, and show them a really clear pathway to enter and engage with you to take the next action. And that is like the bones of any good plan, right? We need to be really clear on who we're talking to, what we're trying to say, what they're going to get out of it, and how to engage with us. In this case, I don't know if you want to get into really practical stuff, and I don't know if I should get down into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, John, I think probably that's a great point. When we talk about a marketing plan, I think for our clubs and coaches and those listening, a marketing plan can sometimes maybe seem a bit overwhelming, and even the strategy around that. And I guess it's breaking it down into those real practical elements about what they can do. So I guess Matt in Hornsby, when he's looking at the plan and he's thinking, okay, my goal is to attract more people to play social play, what are some of those fundamentals that they could be doing first up?
Right. Well, let's run that exercise, keeping Matt's question maybe as the objective, right? So the first set of a plan is to start with your objective. It is actually the number one way. You have to know what winning looks like. And I think if you break down, marketing plans can probably sound like a bit more complex than they need to be.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be a 20-page document that you're submitting to a board or et cetera. It can be pretty simple lists of dot points and actions that you need to take. But you can't win if you don't know what winning looks like. So the first question you ask is, what does winning look like? Like, quantify it and try to turn that into a number if you can, because if you can measure it, then you can actually work against it. If you can't measure it, it can be really tricky. So you can't stop the objective bit at we must grow our member base. It needs the next bit, which is by 100 members, right? It has to have that number or that objective attached to it so that it's quantifiable. You can then go into detail on that, and we can really break that down, because we know that there's a journey involved in trying to get people to do something. So, for every person that might play socially, I don't know, 20% of them might end up becoming a member, and therefore we need a certain amount of people playing socially to get to the number of people that sign up to a membership. So you want to break down your number into all the little steps that lead to the final goal, and write that down so that you now know what winning looks like, and it's really clear. We need to get people to come and play social tennis, because social tennis leads to potentially joining the club, and joining the club helps us get to that final objective of becoming, a more financially stable organization, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. 2, get to know the audience, get that sorted out, and really understand who they are. And I think a lot of businesses in this space forget that their member base is a huge wealth of knowledge, and their community is a huge wealth of knowledge. And the simplest advice I can give you here is ask and you shall receive. Go and talk to people and find out what they're interested in, what sort of places they're getting information from, where are they reading information, what other members are they talking to, how important is a referral versus a media channel, et cetera, and try to understand what drives them to play tennis at your club, because that is a key and interesting piece of information.
So at a practical level, how does one go about doing that? When we're talking about a local club in their area, is it conducting surveys? What does that look like at a practical level?
So if you have a Facebook presence, one of the easiest and nicest ways to do it is to just run a poll, right? You can do that on Instagram, you can do that on Facebook. It costs nothing, and you already have an engaged audience. And most of the time, for community-based clubs, people are engaged. They want to help. They want to help you win. They want to help you succeed, and they just don't know how they can help. So when you ask for help, people come out of the woodwork. So that's an easy one. If you want to go a bit more formal and you've got a database and you've kind of got it ready, then there are lots and lots of free tools like SurveyMonkey, etc., where you can run a survey really easily. You don't even have to go down that route. You can literally send an email if you needed to, though a tool is better because you'll be able to aggregate your information. Also, don't underestimate that power of the conversation when you get out and amongst the member base and actually speak to them. So at events, at games, etc., actually ask the questions around, I wonder how many people have stopped and said, what are the things that you love about this club the most? And what are the things that you love about playing tennis the most? And what are the things that brought you here and what are the things that attracted you? Do that with both regulars who will have a different lens, as well as new people that are potentially trying out the club or your service for the first time, because often they're very different personas. And if you're trying to attract a social player, they're probably very different to a comp player. And things that make them love playing tennis at your club are going to be pretty different, I suspect. But you need to know that. So that's kind of your stage 2 of a plan, because you really need to know your audience. Once you know that and you feel like you've got some little nugget that tells you that, hey, you know what, I love coming here because, and it's fairly likely that your Ausplay data is giving us the biggest clues: social, fun. Yeah. What was the third one?
Fitness. Fun and friends.
There you go. So it's very, very likely that the next stage feeds into those, and hopefully the data that you get out of your own club is going to correlate with that. I think it probably very likely will. And then you've got to get into your compelling message. Well, how do we shape a message that's going to bring people to come and play with us? And so you've got to tell people from the rooftops how to do that. And again, social is seeing some serious uplift at the moment in terms of ways to get messages out there. And I would say that at the highest level, the first cab off the rank for me would be to start testing some messages on my social media channels. Sadly, all of the social media channels that are really effective in this space are what I would call pay-to-play environments. So you do actually need to spend some money here to really get cut through. Just because a lot of people, you may have a lot of people that are following your various social presences, but even then you'll notice that if you don't pay, not a whole lot of people will see those posts and engage with your content.
So John, touching on that, I think, we could look at a whole range of, I guess, opportunities and things that you can do when we've got clubs that have limited budget. And from a marketing perspective, when we look at limited budget, we can still be really effective in what we're doing from a marketing perspective. What could we look at there when we're working with a limited budget, but we're still trying to achieve some of these things?
Everyone has a limited budget. Even the biggest companies in the world will say to me that they have a limited budget. I think that we could all wish that we could spend a bit more than we have. So that's not a unique challenge, believe me. What I think by getting back to that point around measurement and measurement frameworks, you can get a much better read on where to spend your money, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the key point. If something is working and you can measure the success of it, and you can measure your return on investment on that spend, then it's no longer expensive. It becomes an investment rather than a spend, and the mindset should shift from us investing to acquire a new member, which then puts more money in our pocket, versus I'm spending money on marketing.
Yeah.
One of the misnomers that I have to combat all the time from a marketing lens is that people see marketing as a cost center, when in reality it can probably be a profit center. As long as you are measuring where to spend that money and put it down. From a practical sense, depending on the size of your organization, well, regardless, to be honest, membership organizations do the best via social and via search. They're the two channels that I would just be doubling down on the most. And then referral is the one that people seem to always forget or don't pump up enough, but can sometimes be the most effective when it comes from an ROI perspective, because it costs usually not much or nothing in a lot of cases. So what I'm saying there is that you need to have a think about spending some money on your social to make sure that you're reaching new audiences, making sure that you exist in search, because pretty much 90% of all Australians will start to look for some sort of activity if they don't know already about it via a referral, via search. That's where they're going to start the journey. So if you don't exist on search, then you don't exist at all in that person's journey to find you.
Can you explain that just a little bit more, mate, in terms of existing on social? Is that just as simple as boosting a post? And likewise, existing in search, how do you actually activate that?
Right. Well, let's get into let's talk about the customer journey around acquisition, or how to attract someone to anything, right? They can't, there is a standard customer journey which sounds really basic, but are the bones of all communication plans, full stop. First step of the journey is awareness. You cannot, so imagine this is a bit of a circle. If I can draw it for you, I would. I usually do this with a whiteboard. Imagine you've got a circle. At the top of the circle, we've got awareness, i.e. I can't engage with you if I don't even know you exist, right? So I have to know you exist before I'm allowed to even do anything. Then the next step is we can call it trial, first purchase, engagement, whatever you like, which is basically, I know you exist, I'm going to give you a go. Now that might be a little, go out for a play. It could be a call. It could be to actually buy something or buy a membership. But I couldn't have got there unless I knew you existed first. Once I bought from you, the next step then is loyalty, right? At which point I love you or I don't love you, right? So, and most brands have customers that sit in between those two sectors of the circle. So I've tried you, I buy from you from time to time, or I bought from you once and that's it. Or I buy from you all the time and I'm loyal. I like you and I choose you over anyone else on purpose. I go out of my way to do that. And you want to drive people along the circle. So I want to get you into awareness, move you into trial or purchase, move you into loyalty, make you love me more than anyone else so I can keep your wallet share, essentially. The final step is advocacy. Advocacy being telling everybody about that, referrals. I will not be an advocate for your brand, and most people are the same, unless I love you. I have to love you first to then I have to trust the brand that I'm telling, because if my friend tells me, hey, what do you reckon is a great place to play tennis? If I don't strongly feel like it's a great place to play tennis, I won't. And it's the same if someone asks me about buying a car or a phone or whatever it is. The beauty of getting that circle really flowing is that if you can get people down that line and really give them a great experience and get them to advocacy, you get to skip the first step of awareness because the advocacy is so good that they're telling all their friends about you, and you get to jump straight into first trial again. The most expensive part of your step typically is awareness, because you've got to spend money to get people to know you exist and get them to consider you over other choices, right? So in this case, we're not trying to get them to buy one iPhone over another phone. We're trying to get them to pick a physical activity for leisure, in Matt's case, over other physical activities for leisure. And there's lots of physical activities for leisure, right? And so that awareness stage can be really tricky. So thinking about that, you've got to think about what you're doing in each phase. So if I was saying, how do I get people to come to know I exist? Well, that's in that awareness phase, and I've got to get people to know that we exist. I would do that via Facebook primarily, probably Facebook. And when I say Facebook is a bit of a trio now, right? And advertising on Facebook is fairly seamless across all of the things they own. It's actually more than a trio, actually. They keep buying stuff. But Facebook and Instagram are seamlessly connected, and it's very simple. So when you advertise on Facebook, you more or less advertise on Instagram, or you can choose to really easily. And I would, because they're actually slightly different audiences. There is crossover, but they're typically.
John, maybe just pausing quickly there, because it's very relevant to a question we've just got in, is that a club, so it's actually, Matt, if you're boosting on Facebook, how important is Instagram? So I think you're touching on that now, the importance of these various channels.
Both, yeah.
They go on, are they different audiences?
Depending on how savvy you are at looking at the data there.
I think if we're starting from scratch, though, what would your...
if you... I'd do both. If I was starting from scratch, I'd do both, because you've got different audiences on both platforms, and it's no longer like a younger audience on Instagram and an older audience on Facebook. It's kind of an everybody audience on both Facebook. Some people really like Instagram. Yes, there's a younger skew on Insta, but Facebook is still the go-to for events for a lot of young people. So don't don't use your bias there. I would just go out and be fairly even. Facebook is very good at spending your money against an objective because they want A, to take all your money, and B, for you to feel like it was valuable so that you'll come back and give them more money. So that it's not in their best interest to just take the money and give you a terrible outcome. So yes, whilst they're absolutely a pay-to-play platform, they are very much at the best interest of the advertiser. They are built for advertisers. The auto placement tools on those channels are very, very good. So you don't have to think about this too hard. You can just tick the box that says, please run my advertisement on Instagram, and it will just do it for you. And it will, and if the ads on Instagram appear to be doing what you want them to be doing more, i.e. more clicks to my website or more chats on Instagram, on Messenger or whatever it is, it will just send the money to the channel that's working. So you actually don't have to overthink this too much, but I would absolutely say that you do that. Similarly, in that awareness phase, search plays a really, really big part as well, right? We all Google everything to find stuff. It's just how we do it now. It's how you find anything that you don't know somebody or a friend hasn't told you about. Your next best bet is probably going to be Google. So if you aren't really aware of where I could go play tennis for fun, it's very likely the next thing I'm going to do is jump on Google and say tennis courts near me or something along those lines. So you do need to exist on Google, and there's two ways to do that: via what's called organic search, which is basically the organic listing that comes up on Google searches, and paid search, which is where you pay Google to put me at the top of a search result. I would, in a perfect world, spend a little bit of money on that all of the time within a geographic region, because it's unlikely that someone that's 30 Ks away, except in regional sometimes, is going to travel really far to come play at your court. So within a little geographic boundary, I'll just make sure that anyone that is looking for a tennis court to play at sees that I exist. And you can do that across Google Maps as well as the typical Google search, which are the two big places that people are going to be trying to find you. So I'd just make sure that you cover off on that. So the paid way to do this is super easy and is self-serve. You can actually just go to googleadwords.com and create an account, and they take you through a really simple tutorial to do it, or you can obviously engage a professional to help you do it. And similarly with Facebook, to be honest, the SEO way, the more organic way, i.e. not necessarily paying to be listed, is a slightly more complicated process.
Would you? Where does Google My Business fit into this, John? Is that something also you'd advise? You know, when we're
without a doubt. So
and that's a pretty. I know we've spoken. We kind of have included that in some of our resources to our clubs today. That's about really simply registering your business online.
It's the only way for you to exist in Google Maps in any meaningful way, right? So if you and Google Maps is the preferred way that people use to navigate to get to places, right? So just existing is pretty important. So yes, it's you. Sorry, I made the assumption that perhaps a lot of clubs would have done this, but you're right, without a doubt.
I think for those we're really looking at a range, I think, across the board, and so we've got.
You're right, and it's an overlooked part of kind of your baseline awareness places for physical places. Your Google Maps place and your Google My Business profile is like a little mini Facebook profile almost for your business, and you can actually post content on there. And obviously make sure that your maps listing is really accurate, your opening times are accurate, etc. And from that portal, you can actually run advertisements directly into Google Ads, which is what I was mentioning before. But even just doing the baseline of making sure that that is set up properly and all your information is absolutely accurate in that space ensures that you exist, that you now have a place. It's just that, again, it will be a place amongst many places. Sometimes we need to make sure that we're promoting beyond that to get more awareness.
And I think lastly, it's important to know that it's free.
Yes.
Google free thing to do. And I think for anyone for listening that for us at Tennis New South Wales, we will make sure if there's any questions, if you've ever got any questions about how you do that, please reach out to your Tennis New South Wales contact, and we'll make sure that we can take you through that process.
Absolutely.
John, probably what you're talking about, there's almost like a simple checklist, I guess, so to speak, of some of these things you should be doing and working through that checklist.
Without a doubt. And there are some great resources on the Tennis Australia website that I've seen, which are broken down from kind of beginner to intermediate to more advanced features. And I think they cover off a lot of the really basic things that are a checklist that ensure a baseline of success in this space, because you can't really do anything more interesting until you do that baseline stuff first. So that's a really important first step.
John, I've got a quick one for you. Obviously, we've talked about budget financially and how to manage that. What about from a time angle? I mean, so many of our committees are volunteers. How can they be as time savvy and I guess get the most bang for their buck for what they're using their time for in a marketing sense?
Sorry, I've just got a bit of background noise here. Sorry, bear with me.
No worries.
That's all good.
Sorry, guys.
That's all good.
In terms of bang for your buck, so you've got to make sure that we've got to get your measurement factors perfect. That's your step 1, 2, because how do you know what bang for your buck is?
And also, sorry, mate, this is also in terms of time.
What's working, but in terms of things, right? Absolutely. It can be a bit of a tricky one, because what I have found over time is that there does not appear to be a one-size-fits-all groups, which I reckon is reasonably similar from a kind of a group dynamic as Tennis Australia and its associated clubs and members would be. And what I found through years of experimentation is that sometimes something that works really well in one place doesn't work at all in another place. But the things that appear to be most universal do come down to making sure that you have a really strong baseline around engagement type content, always on, right? Consistency will give you the biggest bang for your buck, without a doubt, over the long term, than any individual kind of cool idea or campaign or channel or piece of tech or anything else. Consistently going out and telling people about the benefits of what you do and doing that regularly in interesting ways, so mixing up your content, that is without a doubt the best way to get a return. And time-wise, because you fall into a bit of a routine, can often also be, over the course of time, a much better investment of time than the haphazard stop-start type. Let's do a big campaign. Yep, let's go. Let's get 10 people in a room. Let's have a big meeting. Let's make a big plan. Let's go do a big outreach. When you look at the actual accumulated effort of that versus just doing the right things all of the time, it's actually a better bang for your buck. So I would definitely say that. The other one, without a doubt.
Maybe before, sorry, you go. I just want to ask a quick question for those listening. When we talk about content and regularity, I guess, how do we go about creating good content? Because it's all well and good where you've got top brands with fancy equipment and professionals doing it, but where for some people it's just someone with an iPhone, it's just as achievable to get great content, right? And I guess,
absolutely. In fact, have a look at, there was a great viral video that came out recently. It was a guy on a longboard drinking some cranberry juice in the States. Singing what was the song?
I did
my tongue. It wasn't the Eagles, but it was in any case, this was a dude filming himself on an iPhone. That piece of content just had this vibe about it that was just so chill. It became the viral hit of lockdown, and has been seen, 1 billion times. In fact, Ocean Spray, I think, bought him a car, maybe a house now, actually, to say thank you for the amount of coverage that they had. Ocean Spray juice ran out on shelves in the United States. It's been parodied by, every celebrity under the sun. That content wasn't special. What it did was tap into, like, from a production perspective, it wasn't special at all. Like, there was no fancy equipment. It was super lo-fi, right?
Keep it raw. And maybe for our clubs, it's thinking about what's happening in their environments all the time. If they've got competitions going, if they've got events, it's putting a bit of the face behind, I guess, showing the personality of their club, I guess. So making sure they're filming what's happening, getting images. And I think with Facebook and Instagram, it's about creating that two-way conversation and engagement.
You're so right. And I would say this, I think you need to, content like that, and other brands have done the same. Like lots of brands have done similar sorts of, like, you're tapping into the essence of people, right? We're just talking to people, and I think people have forgotten, or marketers in particular have forgotten, that over time, numbers. We're tracking numbers. We're tracking page views and clicks and engagement levels, etc. And it's all about numbers, when in reality, that click or that page view or that view is a person, a human, looking at your brand and wanting to engage with it in some way. And I think if you just remember that, it's just, digital is a way to connect people, but it is people talking to people. What are the things that a human being likes to see with other? Well, you know what? I don't like to hang out with people I don't like. And guess what? It's the same with brands. We like brands that we like. So you need to tell your story in a human way. It doesn't have to be super polished. In fact, if anything, I think over time people become a bit weary of brands that are over polished.
Yeah.
We like real conversations, and it's okay to have a bit of a mistake in there, or a little bit of blunder, or a bit of background noise, as long as you're showing people what they want. And I think in particular with tennis, there's an amazing opportunity, because I think there's a perception, and this is my opinion, I don't think there's any hard data on this, but I think there is a perception that tennis can be a bit exclusive. And everyone that plays tennis socially knows it's not. It's just, it can be really fun. It doesn't have to be pretentious. It doesn't have to be difficult to access. It can be really simple, and it can just be, hey, let's go and have a hit. And I know that there's been some great campaigns in that space to try to encourage people to start thinking about tennis in that way. But the more that you can do on the local level around breaking down people's barriers that they put up to come and just have fun, which is one of the number one reasons they want to partake in tennis, the better. And that can be done really simply, really raw. If you have an iPhone 7 or beyond, so from 5 years ago till now, your film quality will be excellent. Your photo quality will be excellent. It will be fine. If you're on one of the really new ones, it's probably as good as professional gear, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's not a barrier anymore. But the story part's always been the most important part of any marketing, right? It's why creative agencies exist, because it's the spark of what makes people excited about something. So get creative and tell great stories and share them. Because I think that's probably where there's some real success to be had. And doing it consistently, it's going to get you your big bang for your buck, without a doubt. The other point that I was going to mention is that referral campaigns in this space are mega bang for your buck, right? Ask
Still
people.
Strong, huh?
They're big and they're simple, but you need a process around them, right?
Yeah. How do you do that? How do we do that?
Simple way, so enable them to be digital first, right? So make it easy to invite someone to come and play a game of tennis by literally encouraging them on social posts to say, do you have someone that you want to have a hit with? Tag them on this post, and we will book you in to come and have a play. Could be as simple as that, right? Internally on your premises, have you got signs that say, hey, have you wanted to play? Why don't you come down and play? Scan this QR code and book yourself in straight away. Really simple mechanisms need to be structured and thought about. Have a think about what stands in the way of somebody to just coming and doing that or inviting a friend? And when was the last time that you've gone out to your contacts/member base to ask them, do you know anyone else that wants to come and play tennis or that might enjoy tennis? And give them a mechanic or a mechanism to do that, right? Make it easy to do that, whether that's an open day, whether that's a free play day, whether that's a regular day every month that is like the known day to come and bring a friend day. And you just really sponsor that and hammer that all the time. They're really simple ways to encourage new people to come and have a try at something. And then make sure you have a process on the back of that trial to follow up.
And capture them.
You've got to capture it, because otherwise it just goes away. They came and they had a play with their mate and they disappear into the sunset and you know nothing about them. So you've got to make sure that you've captured those details and that you've spoken to them and that you've encouraged them to come back, and etc. And the cycle can continue. Sometimes I've seen chains of referrals go 10 deep because someone's referred someone who's referred to someone who's referred someone, and it just keeps going and going and going. It only works if that third, that kind of the third and fourth phase of that circle I spoke about is in play, right? They have to love you to refer you. So they've got to have had a great experience.
Customer experience, it's key.
Absolutely.
John, oh God, there's so much we could talk about today. I think I wanted to touch quickly on campaigns and the national campaigns. So we spoke early on about the Ausplay data and national campaigns. And this summer, we know coming into the Australian Open, we've got eyeballs on tennis more than any other time in the year. And we will look to do a bit of an awareness campaign of tennis. So not so much product, but just general awareness, interest in tennis for the everyday Australian. If this is at a national level, how do our clubs at a local level best leverage a national campaign? What can they do when there's things happening on social or in the media? How do they make the most of it and take advantage of that?
Right. So this is actually a really, really interesting point, and one that I've come across a lot as well. Again, if you look at I've by chance ended up spending a lot of time in both franchise branding and marketing, as well as a lot of retail branding. So retailers have an advantage over franchises a lot, because they don't have this challenge that we're talking about, in that a national retailer like a Target puts one big campaign together and it rolls down and everybody does the same thing it's not even up to you. You don't get a choice. You just have to do it, because we own all the stores. You got to do everything. So the big campaign goes out and then all the stores activate and they all put out the same stuff at the same time and do it the exact same way. And then these big brands go and have big bumper sales, because everybody knows what Target's sale is at that time. In the franchise world, it's a bit of a different world. You've got all these little operators that are grouped together in a big brand. They've bought into the brand. And so the brand will create the campaign and they'll spend a lot of money and they'll launch it out. And then often you'll kind of get opt-in, opt-out type scenarios, or pushback to sort of say, oh, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And they don't. And so it's a bit more of a disparate voice. And I often will have this conversation to say the advantage of being part of a group is to piggyback off the group. That is the reason to be part of a group. It is one of the main reasons, right? And in this case, it's in member organizations, it's even more relevant, right? Because we're talking about, sometimes volunteers, sometimes completely private businesses. We're there maybe for an insurance or a compliance reason, but we're not thinking about it from a marketing perspective. But the value is the same and can be huge. It's a massive advantage and opportunity, because remember I mentioned that the branding bit of that circle, the awareness bit, is the most expensive part of marketing. Because it's really hard, because you have to kind of just get it out there and get lots of people to know you exist and then start to filter them down to get you to try. So when a national campaign happens, and you guys have limited budgets too, you can usually only do them for a period of time. So that is your window to piggyback as an operator massively on an uplift in awareness. Because for a period of time, someone else is paying lots of money to get tennis in front of people. So you've got to jump on that. And the best way to do it is to think about it via the lens of how a franchise might do it or how a big retailer would do it, which is don't vary too much from the main message because the message gets diluted. So if it's a big plate, like if there's a line, use the line, but use it in your context. If there's an image, use the image and try to leverage and piggyback off that. It is essentially free marketing that you can really piggyback off. So if there's national TV, I don't know if there is, but if there's national TV, for example, try buy a TV spot in Metro Melbourne or Metro Sydney for your club. It's massively expensive. But if national is paying for some, and then you put something on social that looks and feels similar but points them towards your club, that is an easy connection for a person who sees that information, and you get the benefit of having done the first piece of awareness as part of a group. So I really, really encourage people to have a think about the timelines of that, and I'm sure that you will share when those campaigns are going to launch. Time your activities to coincide. Have a think about your material and see how you can personalize some of that campaign material for your own business and your own club. And try to roll it out at a similar time. You will definitely see an uplift.
Perfect.
That's things like open days and events and things like that. Absolutely.
So run practical extensions of a campaign. So if the main campaign is consider tennis, right? Let's just say, right? It's about an awareness campaign. It's like come and have a hit, come and have play. Maybe you haven't thought about playing tennis in a while. Then the easy extension of that is come and have a hit with us at wherever, at Hornsby, right? And that becomes really simple, but you're extending on a message that someone's already heard once before. And whilst the number, every time I hear the stat seems to change, whether it's 7 or 17 or 5 times, someone has to hear a message before it really sinks in. There's definitely some truth to this, right? We get bombarded with messages all the time. You need to hear it more than once. So why wouldn't you piggyback off the one that's already been out there in a big place? It works. And I've got tons of anecdotal evidence of how that's been measured before. In fact, recently, before this webinar, I was in a big kind of brand campaign wrap-up meeting with a national brand, and there was one site in Brisbane. So let's say there were 30 sites in Brisbane. One of them was about to close down or sell, and so they didn't do any marketing whatsoever. Whilst all the other clubs did lots and lots of other things, the only piece of marketing that went out that was for the group was some radio advertising that went in that city at that time. And so by chance, that one location was like a control location for us because they did nothing else. So we wanted to measure. So we could measure the effectiveness of radio because they did nothing except radio, basically. And that one saw a 200% increase in prospects versus the month previously, or a modest increase across the group. So you could sort of see that the national play has an effect, and then the local stuff tops up on top of it, and that will be the same case here.
Mate, we've only got about 30 seconds to go.
Oh wow, that went really quick.
You've given us so much good information. So in the last 30 seconds of everything you've given us, what would be your top 3 things that you'd be telling people, hey, if you take away anything from this, these are the top 3?
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think you're not giving me any time, but I'll put it this way. There's a framework that I use for every brand that we engage with, both at a huge national and multinational level, and tiny local businesses that we help. And it does come down to these 3. You just need to do great marketing and to create a great experience. You have to overcome 3 problems: an insight problem, an attraction problem, and an engagement problem. And every business I've ever worked with has these 3 problems that they need to overcome. You need to know what the human truth is. Like, why would someone pick you over someone else? You've got to do some effort in thinking about that. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be really simple. I remember having a conversation with you guys previously about this. And one of the things is that in tennis, in summer, it's really hot. And if you have an air-conditioned club room, I would talk about that, honestly. It could be as simple as that gets people to attract, like, oh, well, that's actually a nice bonus. I might go there. But you've got to figure out what's the thing what's the human truth that people want to love that's going to bring them to you. It could be, I want to go and play and be social. You've got to solve your attraction issue. What are the things that are going to get you found, know where you're going to be, what's going to bring them to you. And you've got to solve that engagement problem around creating a great experience. I think if you just think about them in those 3 buckets and you will come up with a lot of creative ideas that will help solve some of your marketing challenges.
Well, thank you so much, John, today. I think an hour certainly wasn't enough to delve into all of this, but we really appreciate your time. And I think for those listening, hopefully this has provided you some insights and some tips and tricks. But I think we can't tackle this all at once. And so remember that we've got teams on the ground here to help guide you through this process. We've got the resources available on our Tennis New South Wales website, and so go there, have a look, but please reach out to the teams, reach out to us in the marketing team, and we'll help you through this. I think we can definitely see some real great improvements and impact that you'll see the benefits for over this summer. So thank you for your time today, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.